Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Commentary as Magic stream on today. Wait, hold on. I've screwed everything up. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Commentary as Magic stream on today's Sunday, September 25th, 2022. There we go. I'm, as always, Grandpaws.
Big Cheese. I don't know how that was any different.
Aracat and
Ivory Starlight, and we have someone with us.
whoops, I messed up there. Not bad.
Can I come in now?
Yes.
No, go back out and come in again.
All right, hold on. All right, I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
It's very, very badly debating trying to at GP to make him mess it up again.
Yeah. And we are glad to have Pages here. Pages, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Always fun to talk about this. Well, it's not just a pet project of yours now. It's a fan favorite at this point in time. You have cemented yourself as a fixture within this community, not only for some of the most creative deck building ideas that we've seen over the years, but also because of this little thing called a cube.
Thanks for buttering me up.
Now let's tear you to shreds. Cube Draft has been something that people, including many of us here at Sim, have looked forward to at every convention where it is present, even if you, for whatever reason, have been unable to attend. So, first off, a big thank you to you for doing your best logistically to get that cube to the places it needs to be.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little rough, but you know, it's worth it if people get to play it and have fun with it.
And play it and have fun with it, they do. We actually capped out the possible cube attendance at Everfree, which was great.
Yeah, all 12 slots. That really says something too. Like, it is one of the first events that historically does not get great attendance, and no, that was great.
Yeah, I think at the very least for every one that I have personally been to, we've always had the max 12 players, and I think this time none of us actually played it.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So it's nice to have a group of 12 players that aren't exactly, this group of people who tend to have, I guess I feel like we tend to have specific, preferences when it comes to drafting and things like that. So, seeing new things is always nice.
Yeah, Aura takes every pumpkin he can see and then takes the Thunderlane when it's passed to him.
Correct. Why would you not?
Wasn't Ivory the one that got the 2 Thunderlanes?
Yes.
Yeah, that was me.
Although that was not Cube Draft, but
It was not. That was a team sealed, I think, and that was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb. Now, how long has the cube been a project of yours? Or I should say, how long has the cube been publicly available at conventions for people to participate in since you first created it?
So I believe the first time I brought it out was in BabsCon 2019. So around April that year. But it was in, construction phase, local play testing, things like that for the year previous.
So, starting a new cube, designing one from the ground up is certainly not just an overnight process. This is something that takes a lot of time and effort and tinkering.
Yeah, especially if you want to, it depends on the scope of what you want to do for your cube. So if you want to make a smaller cube, clearly it doesn't take as long. But for something like this, it does take a while. And you have to source the cards somehow, especially, if you want to run the whole gamut of the entire available card pool.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've talked with you about your cube in the past before, but that has been kind of an introduction to what a cube actually is. So rather than just go through all that same information again, maybe you can take a moment here to highlight what you've been doing with the cube recently and what it is that makes this particular cube a bit more unique compared to others that people may have played with in the past.
Okay, so recently with the cube, relatively recently, I guess, the latest set was Fond Memories that came out.
Right.
So at the beginning of the year, I was focused on trying to figure out how to pick which cards I wanted to implement into the cube, and the reverse, which cards to take out, because I don't want to expand the size of it any more than I want to, than I have to right now, because, well, the carrying case for that cube is now at full capacity, so I can't add any more new cards until I get a new case, for example.
So everything at this point becomes a swap.
Yes. But yeah, there's always, a lot of cards when you have a new set that you always want to try out, and then there are cards that, unfortunately you have to cut as much as you might like them. So making those decisions is, for me, quite difficult. And then other things are just looking back at cards that I've cut before and seeing whether or not, with the new set, whether or not there's a new place for them. And also seeing whether, from reports or things that I'm not there or just watching people play, whether or not some of the cards are overpowered or, can't players can't deal with in the queue, which doesn't make for a fun experience.
Sure. And it's worth noting that this is the first time, I believe, that we actually have fully recorded data on the lists that every person who played chose to run with. In the past, when you've been there especially, you've kind of rotated around the room and caught bits and pieces of what was going on.
Yeah, just kind of keeping an eye on like what's going on, what kind of play styles are going on.
Yeah, and interviewing the players, seeing, what they like, what they've been doing, why they made certain choices. And thank you for all the players this time for allowing us to kind of go through the process of recording your deck lists, as a little tedious as it may have been.
It was very much appreciated. It can certainly provide some valuable data and some fun deck lists that we can talk about here later in the stream.
Yeah.
So as these new sets have come out, as all of print and play basically came out after this cube was created, have you found yourself leaning towards particular types of cards that often end up getting rotated out in favor of new ones? For example, were there sub-themes within the cube that you tried to support at the beginning that you think didn't work that well or weren't that popular? Or do you find yourself trading out, whole cycles of cards at a time for newer cycles as they become available?
Yes, definitely. Before, as more new sets get released, the more, for example, entry cards that aren't vanilla cards get printed or designed. And at the beginning, there were a lot of vanilla cards, especially for entry, because the available pool for them wasn't as large. But then as new sets and new print and play sets get released, and we want the general power level of the cards increases, especially when it comes to entry, then those typically become the first to get shuffled out. One particular cycle that I kind of wish I could keep, but I can't, is I think the Equestrian Odyssey cycle of 2 power entry cards. Partly because, one, they weren't the main 6. I think they were just background ponies.
Is that the one? Yes. No, that's not Lyra.
That one had Dr. Hooves, Spitfire. I think it had Spitfire anyway.
Yeah, the 202 blue Spitfire.
Were they all vanilla?
Yes,
Yeah.
they were all vanilla.
Okay. I kind of remember them.
Yeah, and they all came in foil, which made it extra nice.
Yes, the shiny part. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to rig the packs such that there's a shiny in, every pack, but you can't really keep cards that don't do much to increase the shininess as much as I want to.
I mean, sure you can. It just makes for a much worse play experience, but it looks really good.
It does. Another one is there's a lot of build around cards that exist that the variability of how easy it is to support that sub theme or archetype really it really depends. like the cheerleaders.
I know there's a few people who really enjoyed the cheerleader strategy in Limited.
Yeah, but when you're kind of focused on that set limited where you can have multiple of the same cards that have cheerleader, it's a lot easier. When you're stuck with, or at least in this case, stuck with having only one copy of each, you have to really think about, do they only work in the cheerleader deck or can they do other things? A similar one is the Cutie Mark subtheme.
Ooh, that's a good one if you can get enough power or enough support for it.
Yeah, for the longest time, I had support for the Cutie Mark Crusaders, like Cutie Mark deck, where I think if you had them all out, then effects that happen when you Cutie Mark a friend become amplified. So like
Yep.
Sweetie Belle, I think, was the main one, where you could just pay AT to score a point.
Yeah, you could pay 0 if you had the AJ or Apple Bloom and
Sweetie. Wait, not Sweetie,
Apple Bloom and Scootaloo.
Yes.
Sweetie Belle and Sweetie Belle and Sweetie
yeah,
Belle.
yeah.
Yeah,
The only
and
one that
I
matters.
really wanted. Sorry. But I really wanted that to be like an attempted thing. But as I watch people play, and you know, sometimes the cards weren't available in the pool at the same time, or people just didn't go for it. You have to think about, okay, now it's like maybe it's time to kind of cut this idea and try something else.
Right, because you don't always get all the cards in the pool, in the cube, in the pool at the same time. And to your point earlier, you have to be kind of cautious about this because if you see some of those cards going around, even if you're not doing the Cutie Mark thing, the cards still need to be good enough on their own, which is why they're in there in the first place, so someone else might snap them up.
Right. I like to go for versatile cards. You know, they can work in many different decks, but they really shine in a specific deck, for example.
So if you're in a particular color pairing, for the example of multicolored cards, you might consider including this because, hey, it's a friend that has some ability, and why not? You've got both colors. But if you also have this sub-theme supported in your deck, then you get that much more value.
Yes, for sure. Like the Harmony, like Harmony Dragon, Harmony Earth Ponies, I think that's a big example. A lot of them work by themselves, but if you have, you know, the Harmony sub-theme going, then they become much better.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that I've been able to build GoHome.deck before in the cube.
All right, well, we got some things to cut then, it seems like.
Yep, Ultimate Organizers, right out. Storm King, right out. Let's just kick him out here.
Got that spike? Oh, that one's going out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got all three, the Spike, Ultimate, and
disgusting.
And Storm King.
Just Rick Cheese's packs, no purple for him ever in any draft.
So this actually kind of transitions into another question, right? There are some strategies that people have leaned towards over time, whether it be particular color pairings just because they've got, you know, strong cards, or they just have a good affinity for that playstyle, like Cheese with GoHome.deck. What do you do to balance those different sub-themes or, you know, sub-archetypes within the cube against each other? And is there anything that you think recently has kind of overstayed its welcome?
Okay. Well, how to balance sub-themes around each other is a little bit difficult. I guess I could just take the cards and then build a sample 30 card deck of each of the sub-themes I've tried to include and then play them against each other. I haven't really had the time to do that as much as I want to, but I think it's a good idea. But other than that, it's mostly just watching people play, seeing what kind of sub-themes they're picking, and seeing whether or not, you know, is this a popular sub-theme? Is it winning too much? So that's why I always like to ask, is it fun? That's why I always like to ask the players about their experiences. And then just like seeing as much that's why I wanted to try to take some statistics or some deck lists this time, so I could have a clear idea of what is going on when people are playing. As it pertains, yes, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just acknowledging. Yes, agree.
As it pertains to, are there things that feel like they've overstayed their welcome? Sometimes when I feel like I think this is winning too much, I take it out for a bit and then seeing whether or not things shift in terms like are people just not do they just stop playing this, and then maybe I'll sneak it back in, and then seeing whether or not immediately somebody goes back to playing it because it's too good.
I guess that's kind of the nice thing about maintaining a cube, right? Is it's not like maintaining a constructed format with a ban list. You can pull cards out and put them back in between individual tournaments, and it really has no bearing on a meta because people are just drafting what you put in front of them.
I mean, there is a meta to some degree here because Pages curates this and will encourage playstyles that are fun and reasonably balanced. Like there is absolutely a meta. It's not
If you
maybe
get
the
the
same thing
cards.
as a constructed meta.
Yeah.
Right, but you're not devaluing players' collections or
Yes.
Maybe not offending, but upsetting people who might go there with the intention of, I only want to play this one particular card. You can't really go into limited like that, despite the fact that Cheese does it every time with GoHome.deck and still manages to make it work.
It always works.
There's some shade getting thrown here.
Mostly at him.
I mean, it is kind of sus that Cheese always finds a way to make the same strategy work, no matter what the limited format is.
Cheese is an imposter.
Yeah.
Yes, this is known.
So then what about some tuning knobs for your cube in particular? They're a little different, right? Other cubes might just have the choice to either include a card or not include a card, but you do some different things with how cards are actually drafted. You want to talk a little bit about that?
As for how cards are actually drafted, we're talking about like pack construction.
Pack construction, the separation of the problems, the legal proxies, things like that.
Right. So, as there's a lot of things that you can always pick if you're building your own cube. What you were allowed as proxies, things like that. But what because I always want to have, if possible, an even distribution of colors for the cards. Maybe not the multicolored cards, but I want to have an even distribution so that it's not like, oh, there's too much blue and not enough yellow going around, so everybody plays blue, things like that. Being able to separate the problems from into their own pack instead of having them in the main deck allows me to be able to put more cards in and give players more choices to play with, and then because all the problems are separate, you can then have a wider variety of problems.
I think this is also very nice from a playstyle perspective as well, because it means that you don't have to deal with, oh, good, I guess I get this copy of a problem that's not in my color, which just feels bad when you're drafting.
Yeah. I mean, how often do people in regular draft ever first pick, second pick, third pick a problem?
Is
Well,
it trading traditions?
That's the
Yes.
important one, but you handle trading traditions in a unusual way that I think I have to agree with.
Yeah, because I think that is a problem that was in the limited format it was in. You could proxy. And then we played with that in the cube for a while, then asking questions around whether or not people thought that I should probably take it out like that. And then I decided that, yeah, I should probably remove trading traditions from the proxy pool because I think everybody was using it, right? I don't want people to be able to autopilot, pick certain decisions. Because I want the decision making to be fun and involved. So I, took them out and then put them into the problem packs themselves. So if you want chain traditions, you're gonna have to draft it, get lucky, I guess.
Because that's gonna be picked immediately.
Yes, that's one of those. That is one of those cards that's pack one, pick one, simply because it gives you so many good options.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is, right, that the problem pack is the last drafted pack. So by that point, when you open up your 12 problems to see what you want to pick, you already know what color combinations you're probably playing. I mean, I hope you know what you're playing.
Yeah, I hope by then.
Yeah.
And that allows you to pick, the stronger problems in your colors. So you don't have to, like, otherwise it's like you open a pack and you see something like Final Question. And you go, I don't,
Well, it's a shame I'm not running blue.
Or, yeah, it's like, well, do I want to pick Final Question, pack one, pick one, and then force myself into playing, like, blue-white? And then, you draft blue-white, you get married to it, I guess, and you end up with something that isn't very playable. I would rather have the reverse, where you can play with a bunch of problems that have power instead of just having problems that don't do anything.
Makes sense. And like you mentioned earlier, you want people to not just be able to autopilot knowing that they can proxy things. And we've seen numerous limited environments where, unfortunately, that's kind of exactly what has happened, right? Oh, you know that infiltrating the hive is legal as a starting problem, or you know that Mystery at Hope Hollow is legal as a starting problem proxy. And so, even before you've selected your problem deck, you are already picking cards around this. And the fact that you have been able to rotate out a lot of the standard, like, main six vanilla entry cycle from your cube and make the entry more interesting means that you really do want people to have to make a choice. And it would be a shame if that choice was negated because entry was irrelevant.
Right. Or, the classic searching high and lows only chicken.
Right.
Right. Like, when I was playing, a lot of draft, I looked at my problems, and 3 or 4 of them were proxy problems or problems that are just there for the number, and then not for the effects or anything like that. And I quickly found that to be not as fun as I would have liked. And then now quickly looking through some of these deck lists that we have, right? They're, as far as I could tell, very few people actually picked a proxy starting problem. Everybody has, problems involving their colors that have effects that are suited for their decks.
I think I found like 2 lists out of the 6 that I was reviewing here that picked a starting proxy problem, and that was it. So not very many at all.
Yeah, so 3 out of 12, I think that's a pretty good. I think I would call that a success.
Sure.
Especially when everyone else, when, even though you have those, right, the rest of your problem deck actually, has interesting problem cards in it.
Now you'll have to remind me, what was your decision regarding the Starlight main that was released in Fond Memories?
Oh, that's the one that is just a color.
Just a color, and pay 2 to flip.
Yep.
Right.
And I guess it gets a trait as well. It gets a color and a trait.
And it's nothing on the flip side, right?
And it's nothing on the boosted side, correct?
Yeah.
Does anybody play with that in draft?
I have seen it picked, but rarely.
In regular draft,
Yeah,
it does see occasional use, but I think that's actually working exactly as intended.
Yeah, I would assume so. I believe in the cube. I did not put that card in.
Okay.
Because, well, in Fond Memories draft, like the possible selections for your mains is, nowhere near as large as what I have available.
Sure.
Right. So, instead of having a Starlight that is one color of whatever you want, and then a trait, you could have any different versions of Rainbow Dash or Twilight or the main 6, who's already a color and, has an effect, right, that will help you kind of guide what your deck is trying to do.
Sure.
I don't think it's very interesting to have a main character who is just pay 2 to flip, and then it just sits there doing nothing else.
Right. And Starlight is not designed to be an interesting main. She's designed to kind of fill the need for something proxyable in a limited format event that can allow us to avoid having other mains that would be chosen every single time be proxyable, like Selena or Skystar, for instance.
Cough, Applejack, cough.
Right. But, as you mentioned, the difference between playing a draft in a single or 2-set limited format like, Fond Memories New Dawn versus a carefully constructed and curated cube that is also updated after each event is complete and, really a living format type thing. It's a lot less important to have that go-to proxy because, like you said, it kind of kills some of the fun in the card choices that you made for what to include.
Yeah, and I would like, your main character to kind of dictate a specific play style as they typically do.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of main characters dictating that and looking at some of the problem choices that players made, we have all the deck lists for the 12 participants. We probably aren't going to go through them all here, but I believe you had a few in particular that had some neat strategies going on that you wanted to talk about or highlight, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Do you want to start with the elephant in the room?
You want to do it?
Yeah, sure. Let's bring up the Ambassador of Honesty deck.
All right, number 6.
So, as people complain about it was banned for a reason. But I put banned cards in my queue because in a limited format, it's a lot harder to take advantage of them. But when this was available, it always got picked. Actually, it was a main that you could pick as your starting main or as the main character, not in a pack. And as far as like initial testing went, and not very many people picked Applejack, which kind of surprised me. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a safe thing to include. I played with it a couple of times. I won all my games. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
I played with it a bit. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then I was eventually convinced, yeah, maybe I should just take it out. And I mean, here's an example of a cycle that gets broken because one of the cards is like clearly too strong. The Ambassador cycle. So instead, I put in Muffin Mare. Sharing is caring. I think that's the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so then I kind of left Applejack out. And then I decided, you know what? Maybe you should try this again. And then I put her as a pack draftable main. Now, I believe the person who ended up with this deck had her in the second pack, I want to say. And I believe it was really close to a windmill slam of a pick.
If there's ever a card that you would do that for, she's right up there.
Yeah, because even if you don't plan on using it, someone else will definitely use it if they have it.
Right, that is the other thing that's really relevant about the cube, right? Is when it comes to the packs themselves of the normally the draw deck cards. There's one of every card, correct?
Yes.
Right. So if you see that AJ, that's the only one. It's not like in Limited where, well, you don't know if your opponent has already seen one of these cards come around because you don't know what was in their booster.
Right. The good old pick one hate draft.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then this deck also has Applejack Factory Organizer in it.
And Trading Traditions, which is just disgusting.
Trading Traditions. Does it? Yeah, it does. So, I mean, you're already set right there. And yes, this deck did go 3-0. Although I think it had a couple close calls. So, maybe it's time to shelve Ambassador of Honesty away again and find a replacement. Maybe Grogar?
Maybe. This thing also got 2 epic troublemakers to farm with, too.
Right. Here's an example of an archetype that I kind of want to support, but kind of don't. Villain farming, or not villain, epic troublemaker farming. I think there's like exactly one villain in the cube, and this deck has it.
Oh, you didn't include Chrissy or Sombra or Tyrek or any of those?
No, I didn't.
Interesting.
Through testing, I've found that having villains in a limited format feels bad.
Hmm.
So I try to shy away from it, but there's support for troublemaker farming if you manage to get the pieces.
Mm-hmm. Good old spring forward.
Yeah, well, it's a pet card of mine for sure, and I've seen people use it to hilarious, especially because there's so many tokens running around nowadays.
I love me some spring forward.
She is a card.
Oh yeah, and it had Carboloader too. Ooh, what a deck! This is like there are
Buy
so many
some apples.
Applejacks.
I thought Feathers wasn't running in this.
It wasn't her.
Yeah, there's only 5 troublemakers. Come on.
Only 2 epics.
Yeah, and yep, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, there's and then here's a cycle of cards that I like to put in that kind of on the surface seems kind of like they don't seem great. Well, they have been used in Constructed too, I think a very limited extent. But the sea ponies, Applejack on a sea pony is here.
Strictly better than Sea Pony Royal Guard or whatever it's called.
Oh, I don't remember which one that was, but yeah, for example, here I have a cycle of sea ponies because you look down through the list of cards and you notice, wow, that's a lot of main 6 cards. Wow, so a lot of them have enters play abilities. You know what gets really good with them? The sea ponies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's good for the replay, but even if all you're doing is just being able to move effectively a 4-power body for 2 AT, and getting it's not bad.
Yeah, and they have an ability themselves as well. So it felt like a very kind of like a lubricant type of card.
Mm-hmm.
Where they are, very versatile. Can do many things, and helps decks get more powerful without, including really powerful stuff.
Yep. Only thing it's missing is Granny Smith.
Oof.
Yeah. She's in the cube, right?
Oh, which one?
Granny Smith, the Diligent 3?
I believe so.
3/3/3 Diligent 3.
Yeah, not off the top of my head, but I'll have to double check.
I hate that card so much. Unless I get it, and then I love that card.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all I had for that one.
Got a couple
I
others
don't
you want
think
to take a
I'll
look
see
at?
Ambassador of Honesty back for a bit.
She's going to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, a little bit of a nap.
Got to go back to the moon.
Yep.
Might as well stay there. Come on. Let's take a look at this Ocellus deck.
Okay, so number 1.
Yeah, number 1.
You said there was some cool stuff going on in here, so let's see what they were planning. Well, it has a Thunder Lane.
Yeah.
And an F-Stop. But then it's got this great suite of movement stuff here with Orchard Blossom, Apple Bloom, First Mate Mullet, AK Yearling, and Cybernetic Limb Actuator.
Yeah, then
and,
you look at the rest of the deck.
There's a lot. There's a lot of hats here.
Right. And so for each color combination, I try to go for one half, maybe two archetypes that you could go through. And for blue-white or white-blue, I was aiming towards having accessories as the theme for this color combination.
Makes sense.
With a bit of a point acceleration sub-theme, because a lot of those cards are in white-blue as well. So you have a card like Cold Wave, which is a versatile card in the sense that we talked about, these types of cards where you can use them, but if you're in the specific archetype that really takes advantage, it's so good. Right? And there's what, 1, 2, 3, there's like 5, there's a lot of accessories in this deck.
There sure are.
And you look at the rest of you see there's like, you notice it's white and blue, but there's also a lot of blue-orange, which is, you might think, okay, that's kind of odd, especially because their main character is white. Why is all this blue-orange in here? Well, a lot of the time what happens when you're drafting in a limited format is you kind of are in 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 colors at once. You're just like kind of going through picking, good cards, and you find yourself with a pile of cards that don't really connect.
Yeah, it's quite often you're in 3 colors or more.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, so they could have been thinking, all right, I'm gonna go. It's kind of hard to tell what was the first pick here, I think. But you could, a player like this could be thinking, okay, I want to play like white, but then I have all these blue-orange cards. How do I get, how can I make it easier to play blue-orange when I've committed, or like I'm really deep into white? When you start trying to find the cards that connect to blue-orange, like white-orange or white-blue.
Uh-huh.
And that's how you end up with 3 color decks in draft a lot of the time.
It actually worked out pretty well here for them too, because with the exception of Rarity and Trenderhoof, all of the cards with orange rec are meetable with just 2 power, and you've got both Giovanna and Lotus Blossom that can enter either blue or orange at 2 power, plus your speech.
Yep. And then you can look at the problem deck and see they've got Grand Opening, which is a problem that I think it puts resources back in from the discard pile. And I feel like it would be really hard to actually get the synergy in a regular draft. But because I've put all the problems as the last pack that you draft, you can look into those problems and say, that works with what I'm trying to do. Let's take it easy. And then your problems work with your friends and the rest of your deck, which really is, when you're playing constructed, that's what you want to be doing. So it feels way more synergistic, connected, rather than detached, as I feel happens a lot in draft.
Yep. And of course, you've got a pretty big suite of friends here with power greater than their cost, which means that Ocellus is going to be very happy about this. And if you do have something that needs a little boost, well, that's what your hats are there for.
Yep. And then there's also, every time I look at this deck, I see a few more things, right? This has redeeming qualities and +1. So there is, depends on how much you really want to support it, right? But there is a very slight reanimation sub-theme that is possible here.
Some recursion through High Alert and F-Stop as well.
Right. So this looks like a pretty resilient deck that you can get a lot of things back and get value through your resources, your accessories, things like that.
Yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. I only have one issue with this deck.
The last
Does
card.
it concern that last card there?
It might concern that last card there.
Winterzilla? No. All right, let's find the resource removal. Actually, I take issue with this. It's got spoons in it.
Yeah.
I don't like spoons.
Spoons is great. You don't always get resource removal in limited.
Nope.
Right. Maybe like I'm pretty sure I put Rarity Dressmaker as a main you can choose. So I would have liked to see what this player could have done with that one instead of Ocellus, but I think Ocellus is probably easier to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that deck a lot. I think this one went 1-1-1.
Yes.
There was a tie.
Of course.
Looks like that one tied with Silverstream Pink Blue.
Yeah. Sorry, Ivory, what were you saying?
I said, of course there was. It was limited.
Yep. We probably got time to take a look at another two.
Yeah, sure. I want to take a look at this Thorax deck here.
Okay. So number 2.
Yeah, number 2.
Obligated. Sorry.
Obligated Thorax.
Obligated?
I'm pretty sure every time Thorax was available in the pool, someone plays Thorax. Thorax something. Sometimes it's Thorax blue, sometimes it's Thorax orange.
Thorax drunk.
Yeah. But we were talking about earlier about, things about how to, like, what am I doing to balance certain colors, things like that. As part of the drafting pool, I've included one main of each color that you can draft. Well, so for yellow, it's been Thorax. For pink, it's Silverstream. For orange, this time it was Ambassador of Honesty.
Whoops.
But for the blue one, it's not Luna. What's her actual name? Luna Dream Warrior?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I did not pick Luna to be in this cube. Instead, it's Shining Armor Fastball Special.
Interesting choice.
I think it's like
I think it's a really fun
as
the
a main,
main.
yeah.
Okay.
The main that you can draft.
Yeah, and there's also Princess Cadence on the other side.
And it's Princess
Yes.
Cadence on the
Yeah,
other side.
okay.
Wife throw main.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I think it's really funny. And I have seen it been drafted and used a couple times. But Luna and Thorax seem pretty popular and constructed. Why do I have Thorax and why don't I have Luna?
Yeah.
Luna's
why?
too strong.
Why? In fact, I never even considered Luna in the cube ever. Like, I already knew she's not going to be in here. And I don't think I've changed my stance on that since. Right?
She's very good at what she does. She kicks butt and takes names, and the fact that, like, her dominance in constructed even is interesting.
I mean,
and you're probably looking at this in the context of limited and just being like, that's not just going to be a pack one, pick one. That's, all right, thank you for giving me the game.
I mean, it's also like she's good with basically any cards you draft.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what you pick.
Yeah. I want to avoid cards that are too general. Luna, like, you can have literally, I think, anything with her, and she'll do great.
She's better with Hasty, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's even better with Hasty, but already you're saving like 2 AT every time. And especially, in the earlier days of limited, any amount of AT you save on movement is just insane.
Right, and Fastball Special does have Swift, which is, I'm going to argue, still pretty busted on a main.
Oh yeah, so good. Right? I mean, I guess I could, what are my other options for blue mains I could stick into a pack? Scootaloo?
It's like blue's mains are all really good or something. What's going on here? I want to have a chat with the manager.
I mean, Fastball Special is also completely fine. It has Swift on it, as Animoy says in chat.
That's right. But yeah, I wanted to pick like, you can't just, I don't want fire and forget, right? Staff as a Canis, get out. Like Nightmare villains, I don't want, usually. So I have Thorax in the cube because he at least requires you to kind of build your deck in a certain way for it to be good.
Right. He doesn't just like roll up onto the scene and start, moping around as he does. He has to have a bunch of shoulders to cry on.
Right. So yeah, you look at this deck, and it seems very tailored towards what a Thorax deck would be. Got a lot of low cost friends. There's a bunch of critters in here.
Yeah, we got the Raptor Razor. Like, if you look at this versus a constructed deck that uses Thorax, there's...
And it got both yellow anthems, too. It got Fast Food and Conductor's Baton, and it got Birds of a Feather. Gross.
And it's got Raptor Razor, and it's got Bunyip. The only thing it's missing is the Treading Water.
That's true. That's true. If it had Treading Water...
I think some other deck had that. Maybe even the other pool. But yeah, like, I see Conductor's Baton and Fast Food in the same deck a lot.
Boots.
I mean, that makes sense, right? If you're going to have one of those, you probably want both.
Yep, that's true. And
oftentimes Yellow Swarm is critter-based, so...
Right, and then they've got a lot of... They got, orange-yellow problem that I believe is pretty good for the deck. And, it works pretty well. It looks good. It approximates what you want to do with this main character for the strategy, which is always nice. You don't want to be playing a pile. Just 30 cards, shuffle them up, and then slam it in. Right? It's way more interesting for sure if you have a coherent strategy, which
sure.
I think all of these decks ended up having. Which for me means it was good. That it was a success. Can't really say that very well.
I wonder if this person was able to get Thorax to flip early.
With this deck, I mean, they have... Is that Bunny Breakout?
That is Bunny Breakout, but if they didn't have... I mean, they have a fair number of ways to do that on turn 2, right? You've got AJ, Ember, Kevin, and Starlight. And technically, I guess you could do it with Silver Shill's Coin and a Falcon, or a Yona, or a Delivery Mare. So those work, but I'm just surprised that the deck did not do as well as you might expect for something like this. That's one of the things that always made AJ so scary in Limited, was she just got really big, and it's difficult to deal with a big main. Now, Thorax's, explain your largeness is more disruptible, but it's still challenging. There's not that many board wipes that exist within this game.
I mean, it is technically more disruptible, but like in practice, especially in Limited, crafting a board wipe in Limited is generally feels bad. Maybe like cornered.
Well, there's also going to be a cap on the power here, because it's not going to go much above +4, because, you still have to have those friends.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised to know this deck went 1 and 2?
Yeah, I am.
I actually am as well.
Yeah, I saw some of the matches and I was like, wow.
Did they go against AJ twice?
At least once. I'm pretty sure at least once, but I was still surprised. Like, wow,
Well,
I can't believe. Like, this deck to me looks pretty good and coherent.
Yeah, the AJ one doesn't count. Come on.
Yeah, I think from my side, other than that, from my side, that's pretty much the ones that I want to talk about for sure. Were there any on the other side? Because these were all, by the way, in the same draft pod. So these decks had to play against each other. And then the other 6 decks had to play against those, amongst themselves as well.
I think I'd like to talk about number 12 if we can.
All right.
It's another deck that went 1-2, but I think was trying to do some pretty cool stuff here.
Yeah. Who remembers the days of Octavia Pink in Constructed?
Yeah. Those were fun.
I played that
I like
deck.
those.
Yeah, I think everybody, who played it really liked it. I found it really fun.
Unlimited power.
There's a lot going on here to enjoy. You've got Octavia with her ability turning your cheap friends into big power. This is about the only time that I'd sit there and look at Flitter Ribbon Wielder and be like, yeah, sure, that's fine.
What is her ability again?
Competitive 1 in Troublemaker face-offs.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Flitter.
You mess with Flitter.
She's a true OG.
She is.
She is a true OG. So you can definitely take advantage of Octavia's ability for this big power. But there's a lot of control cards in here too. Like let's look at the disruption / removal. You've got Sonata Dusk, Bait and Switch, Griselda, Minuet, Pharynx. Featherweight is giving you some card advantage. Food Fight, Wink. Like it just keeps going and going. And the thing that makes this so fun for me is there's a lot of friend-based disruption in here, which is great if you're just pushing for face-offs on your turn. But what if you could also mess with the opponent on their turn? Because they've also drafted Friendship Express.
Choo choo.
And so now you can hasty in a Pharynx and steal one of your opponent's friends, or a Minuet and steal one of your opponent's friends, or a Bait and Switch and just replace that problem entirely.
So mean.
Or hasty in a Party Mare at the end of your opponent's turn, so it's less likely to be disrupted.
Yeah, Cube is a really good format where you can allow cards that are otherwise overlooked to shine in those correct circumstances.
Cheering up a friend is also a great problem for Octavia here.
Oh yeah, that classic.
That's a good one. And you can make duplicate copies of a few of your resources like Galagown or Heart of the Sea. That's kind of fun with becoming popular.
Yeah, 2 cards I bet the Ocellus player would have really liked to have in the other pod. But thumbs the brakes.
Yep. Sometimes that's just how the cards get divided.
Yeah, looking at this deck kind of made me think back to the Octavia Pink constructed deck back then when a certain pink-white card called Bulk Biceps was still legal.
This is a stupid card.
Who's that?
Dumb card.
What? It'd be a shame if someone portaled it.
Would be a shame.
Forever.
By the way, I will mention that early local playing before I brought to Babs a while ago, I did have that Bulk Biceps in here because I'm like, yeah, banned card, let's see how it works here. And then I was somehow allowed to draft purple, pink, white with a bunch of bounce.
And then you were like, no.
And then I looked at myself and was like, wow, what have I done?
What have I become? I am the real monster this whole time.
Is this the you either die in aggro deck or live long enough to see yourself become a control deck?
I am an equal opportunist.
Play whatever
This is true.
best.
You can trust Pages when he says this. As this man, with his intense 1,000-sun burning hatred of Bodyguard, ran a deck with 3 copies of it in Continentals this year, so he means that when he says it.
Man, I watch a shower after every game. Shout out, by the way, to that game I played. That one game I played during Continentals, where I believe I hasted in a Applejack and ended up making something like 18 unicorn tokens.
Gross.
That is kind
Bodyguard is a perfectly fine card with no issues whatsoever.
Perfectly fine card with no issues.
Yeah.
Right? So even if I wanted to put in a card like Bulk Biceps again, I have a strict limit on how many multicolored cards there are. Because, well, if I want things to be equal, every time I put in a multicolored card, I need to put in another card for every color combination that exists.
Which is 15 total?
Yeah.
Right? So there's, I think, 10 cards of each color combination, like a multicolored one. So there's a lot of competition for those slots. I mean, in some colors, let's say, I think pink-yellow, I don't think the competition is that fierce. But for a color combination like pink-white, I think it's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of cards in certain color combinations, and I have to think about, well, do I want to include like all of these? Because if pink-white has all these good multicolored cards, which tend to, entice a player into playing that color combinations. Oh man, the sick pink-white card, I want to play pink-white. And then you see like pink-yellow cards that aren't as great or
Just
aren't as
that's
tempting.
nice.
Yeah, or you have like where is that other one? Yeah, or like I guess pink purple, another one too. You see a Selena blue and you're like, rubbing your hands.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, there's certain color combinations that just don't seem to have the same kind of explosive power, I guess.
Right. So you want to be able to kind of balance it out if you can by saying, okay, maybe I don't include like these really strong multicolored cards because it will just like make everybody want to play those colors. On the other hand, you want the cards to be strong enough to be fun to use.
Also true. It's a tricky balancing act.
Yeah, and if I see that a certain color or color combination is getting played more than I would like, then I would have to, maybe like tone down some of those cards, maybe by putting in weaker cards that are of just that color. Like if there's too much pink running around, everybody wants to play pink, then I might have to remove some good pink cards to make the other colors more enticing. Or like maybe like I don't see very many decks running white for whatever reason. Should I put in RTO? Which, by the way, is not on the cube. But I've always been thinking about maybe like is it just strong enough but not too strong to include versus something like Night Glider?
How much white did we see? Just 2?
I think there was actually quite a bit.
3 decks with white.
And I think that's fine. Like there was a white main. Yeah, there are 12 decks. I think that's pretty good. There were like some like Student 6 was played, so I mean that could be any color, but I think white was the color they picked, maybe blue. It was a blue-white deck, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think overall, the color spread was satisfactory to me. Looked pretty good. One pod ran like every player had a differently colored main, and then in this pod, I mean there were 2 Twilight. There are 2 Twilights. Maybe there's always I think at least 2 Twilight players every time. Maybe I might consider removing that because it gets played a lot for somewhat obvious reasons.
I like Twilight.
I like
It's-
it too.
It's a fun card, but boy, it's tricky to balance in a limited environment like this.
It's also hard to balance in Highlander.
I mean, also true.
Yeah, for the record, there's a spell for that one. Right? It's a card that essentially has a free flip every time.
I think it's this
Good
main.
to have.
My windows are all very small.
Yeah, so sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if I didn't know any better, I would assume this was Cheese's list.
I was just going to say I like this list.
Yeah, I played this list.
I really like
This
this
has-
list.
This has everything he needs. It has Storm King, it has TSUV, it has Portal, it has Napcakes.
Who ran this?
Oh yeah, this deck looks. This is pretty close to that deck I was mentioning. Funnily enough, in that same, it was a 4-player draft when I built the El Disgusting. But funnily enough, the other 3 players all went some form of yellow.
Ah, which
You
makes
know,
this less
when-
viable.
When you read the signs and notice that there is absolutely no yellow or blue going around, and you're getting past these insane purple cards that combo together, and then you let some of them through, and they come back to you, and you fist pump on the inside.
It's a good feeling. I especially like the disrespectful Pinky Sense intent abuse play there. I wish all of my opponents a very happy lose all your action tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe there's a spell for that. Might need some reviewing. If
Yeah.
consistently there are multiple players every time with her.
Well, I know Cheese likes playing her, so that's enough reason for me. We can kick her out.
Is Tantibus
I
really?
agree.
Is Tantibus Chaos really only the opponent loses AT?
No, it's both of you.
That's both. Oh, it's the other ability that's only they lose or something.
You would support Paige's decision to remove spell for that.
And any other card that Cheese likes, that's fine. Cheese doesn't need more nice things.
Right. If I remove her, right, I would have to find a replacement.
Just put Ambassador back in. I'm sure it'll be fine. You can pull out AJ Ambassador and put in Twilight Ambassador, and I'm sure this will cause no problems whatsoever.
Gross.
I mean, all the other ambassadors you can pick, just not AJ, because screw that.
Are the elements in the cube?
The resources?
The friends.
Like the huge ones.
Yeah.
I think only one of them is.
I think
Is it Twilight?
Yeah, is it Twilight?
No, it's AJ.
No, it's
I-
AJ.
It's
Yeah.
AJ. AJ belongs in there. That's fair. Well, I guess the last question I'd have for you, Pages, is what is the next opportunity people who are interested in playing this particular cube are going to have a chance to do so?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Cause as much as I want to go to Cider Fest,
Yes,
Is that-
Headfest is the next con that's happening.
yeah, as much as I want to go to Cider Fest, I don't think I'll have the time available to do so. So no guarantees. So I guess the next definitely for sure one will be Vancouver
There we go.
in January.
Come up to Canada, get stranded in the airport, rent a car,
It's either
on
January
3
or
hours of
February.
sleep.
Get
It's
caught
great.
in a snowstorm.
No, not caught in a snowstorm. Intentionally drive into a snowstorm.
Mad lad.
January
Yeah.
13th to 15th.
There we go. Anyway, come to Vancouver.
Anyway, come to Vancouver. However, I will mention that there has been, I think, at least a couple of groups of people who have been trying to build their own cubes. And I've talked with a few of those constructors to see, how they're doing. They've asked me some questions that I've happily answered. If anybody else has any questions about creating, running a cube, something like that, I'll always open.
Well, that's very kind of you. And we hope that anyone who wants to, that has not had a chance to yet, will get the chance to experience this cube soon.
Yes, thank you again to all the players, not just of the last time we ran it at the Everfree, but everybody who's ever played it. All your feedback every time I ask you a question is just to make this better. And everything, like all the answers I've gotten have been very much taken into account and appreciated.
We appreciate you running it. 'Cause it's rare that I end up getting to run in this, especially if we end up with situations like Everfree where it's just like, we've got like 16 people who all want to play. I'm like,
I've always wanted to attempt to run 2 cube events in the same convention. But usually it's a logistics problem of trying to block off the time to do that, and then still have time to do everything else.
It also takes a while to reset the cube.
Oh yeah, it's like 3 hours. If I'm not entirely focused on doing it, it's like 2 to 3 hours, I would say.
Did we get to Prismlight's question?
I did miss Prismlight's question. What about the 3-color ultra rare friends?
The 3-color ultra rare friends?
Yeah, the tricorns and that cycle.
Okay, yeah. So I for a time had like the songs. I think they're the events.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the tricorns in the cube, because I want to see whether or not they were viable. You open a pack up and you see, just staring at you, 3 color requirements, and maybe it's like, oh man, I really want to try running that, so I'll pick it, and then I'll try to I'll try to basically build around that. Or you might want to see if it wheels, and then because the harder a card is to play, typically the more likely it is to go around. But I noticed that they were just never being played. Right? They might be stranded in the pack, last pick, second last pick, and people just didn't really play them. So unfortunately, I had to. Also, for space considerations, I did eventually cut them. Also, because typically I needed those cards for my actual constructed decks.
Sure.
So, if maybe I might consider trying it again, especially when like more triple color combination cards get released. It was weird because there's a higher concentration of 3-color cards in certain colors than others.
There sure is. We'll see if some future releases can help fix that.
Yeah, every time you release some stuff, I gotta pour over the list and go, okay, how does this work with that? How does this work with that?
We just like creating extra work for you.
I mean, you guys are doing the most.
Well, thank you again, Pages. It's always we're always glad to have you here to talk about this project.
Thank you very much for having me.
One sec, Ara.
What's up?
The thing we need in a second is down.
Ow, it broke.
Yeah.
Stall for time.
How does that always break?
Because there's a dumb reason for it.
Go on, tell us more about this dumb reason for it.
Computers are terrible.
Were computers a mistake?
Yes, computers were a mistake.
That's not true. Computers are not a mistake. All my friends are in there.
I am dangerously close to saying that unironically.
I have been saying it unironically this week.
Oh, is your computer still being weird?
No, I think I figured out what the problem was, but don't worry, there'll be more.
Oh boy, this is going to be a fun story for later.
Anyways, come to Vancouver.
This is how we know it's broken.
Yep. There we go.
We haven't cut to that in a while.
Yeah, we can just do the outro for that one. That's fine. That'll wrap up the discussion on the cube for today. We would like to give a big shout out to all our patrons on Patreon who have had your names featured every week, except this one. We're working on it. We'll see what we can do.
Refresh it.
Thank you so much for your regular support. If you aren't currently a patron and you enjoy what we do, please consider donating. Doing so does enable us to continue making content like this and lets you earn some great perks as a bonus. If you have comments or questions you'd like to send our way, feel free to reach out to us through Facebook, Twitter, or email. If you're a patron, you can also chat live with us on Slack any day, anytime, especially for the next 3 days where I will be up
Wowing?
till... Yes,
Have you already taken time off?
I have.
We all have our vices.
Yep, I gotta do this one. I haven't done it in a while. My eyes are already hurting. This is a problem. Finally, if you're looking to watch any of our previous videos, including tournament recordings, you can find them on our YouTube channel, linked just below the stream. With all that said, thank you to each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. We are, as always, Commentary is Magic. I am, as always, Grand Pause.
Big cheese.
Arcat.
Ivory Starlight.
And I'm
Sp-
Pages.
And we'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye.